Hi, this is Diana from Olive Well Podcast, and we are here today with Lily. And Lily is going to really talk about um, elder financial I can't even say the word exploitation. How we are elderly are being taken advantage of. My own story and how I met. Let me just really quickly tell you how I met her. I had gone on our neighborhood page to basically bring awareness how my mom was scammed out of all of her money by somebody who called to say they were Bank of America and that they were her, there was fraud on her account, and somehow they talked her into basically giving them all of her money. And so here we are today. And so Lily had reached out to me. She had DM'd me and said, let me give you some tips and tricks. And I thought, great, like maybe we should actually bring this out to all of you. And so here we are today. And I really, really appreciate you being here today. So I'm just going to pass the mic over to Lily.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, absolutely. So I think as far as everything that we've been seeing recently, elder financial exploitation is something that's not really talked about enough. It happens every day all around the country, and there's a lot of people that stay silent about it, and there's a lot of people that will come out and they will speak about it. And those are usually the headlines that we see, this person loses $1 million, or this person gets scammed out of 100,000. We see a lot of those, large numbers because those are the people that end up hurting the worst. But what we don't see is the people that don't have a lot to begin with and lose everything and stay quiet about it. And a lot of those individuals, whether they don't have family members or they just don't really know what to do, with the internet and how fraud actors are easily manipulating information and just kind of gaining the trust of elderly people, especially those that don't have a lot of family around them. They truly have found a way to exploit them. Just like you said with your mom, that's one of the biggest fraud trends right now. Someone's calling you, they're telling you, hey, they know you're a financial institution already. They're saying, hey, we're calling you from this financial institution, and did you conduct this transaction on your account? We think that you have fraud on your account. And you're like, no, I didn't do $1,000 to there. And then you kind of start getting scared. And usually they start saying, okay, well, don't worry about it. We're going to take care of it for you. Very personable. And at that time, especially for someone that's elderly, maybe doesn't use online banking or whatever it is, then they'll start giving them some of that information. Hey, we just need to verify that, this is your username, or we just need to verify that this is your card. Can you provide us some of that information? And this is where the next step of some of the, financial institutions in general are trying their best at implementing things to put a block, but there's always going to be someone that's a little step ahead of them. We see it today with everything. You're getting a one-time passcode sent to your phone. Hey, we're going to send you a one-time passcode. Multi-factor authentication. Well, they're using that to exploit it even more because they're saying, hey, we're going to send you a one-time passcode. Go ahead and read it off to us. Well, that just gave someone access to your account, and I think that happens a lot with people where they're like, yeah, I had no idea, and right then and there, that person can be doing Zelle transfers or wire transfers or whatever they want on your account, and you have no idea. And typically, that person won't know until that money is gone. So,
Can they
go ahead.
see, I have a really quick question. So, can they see how much money you have in your account by that one time passcode? Like, how do they know
So,
how much money to take from you?
so a lot of people, and I'm sure there's different organizations that do it in different ways. But there's some fraud actors that will gain remote access to your device. You'll see headlines to where kind of like when you call tech support, they're like, hey, let me help you out with that. Sometimes they'll say, hey, let me gain remote access to your device. Let me help you get your money back. Or sometimes they'll call you saying that they're from IT, and then they say, hey, we noticed a refund. And we're going to give you a refund. Go ahead and, put in your credentials, and we're going to gain remote access. And you don't even know what they're doing on your device, especially for elderly customers that, to them, that's like, okay, well, yeah, let me give you remote access. Let me have you help me. You can see everything on my screen. I'm not very tech savvy. So from there, they log on to their online banking, and they can see everything. And that's where other things such as like putting a Trojan on your device can happen. As soon as they gain remote access, you won't know what type of Trojans they put. They don't know what type of, coding they're putting into your computer. So that way they can use it even after you've stopped it. So there's a lot of things
Your
that go
bank account
into
won't
it.
matter if they've put on something onto your
Right.
device.
Right. So they can put the keylogger on your device, and they'll know exactly what you're inputting.
Right.
And that's another big thing too, is like giving elderly individuals just kind of like that education that their financial institution will never ask them to gain remote access to their device. Your financial institution will never ask you for your online username and password. Like, they won't ask you those types of questions because they're not supposed to know those to begin with. That representative, whether they're calling you or you're calling them, like, they're not supposed to ask you any of that information. So I kind of wanted to bring into light too that a lot of times what we've seen now, there's a lot of things that you can go and read about that people don't know about. Like, so the FinCEN networks, which is the Financial Enforcement Network, they actually have all their stuff is on open source. So anyone can go on there and read what are the new trends that they're seeing.
Can you repeat that? What is it?
So it's FinCEN. It's the Financial Enforcement Network. And it's a global network, and they actually release these articles when they see an increase of reportings of certain fraud scenario scams. And they'll go into detail about, like, this is what we're seeing, here's the way to combat it. Here's how to report it and things like that. And I think everyone should be a little bit more educated on it, especially just to share with your friends and family, to share at your churches, to share with, someone that it maybe isn't tech savvy, like that. Like, when they get that phone call, if someone's calling you from your bank, like, I always just say, like, hang up, tell them you're going to call them back. Like, tell them, call the number on the back of your debit card, never answer the number, because they're getting good. You can see it on your phone. A caller ID is going to come up and it's going to say Bank of America. It's going to look really good. But it's not. And so anytime that you think that your financial institution is calling you, just hang up, just call the number on the back of your card. You don't need to talk to anyone that you're not expecting a call from. Yeah.
That's what I told my mom to do.
Yeah.
Like a week prior to that, just hang up. What are questions that a legitimate bank would actually ask?
They might ask out of wallet questions. And those can just vary depending on what financial institution. If you are calling into your financial institution, they will need to authenticate you. And each financial institution has their own process of doing that. But sometimes you'll get like those text messages will be like, reply, did you do this transaction on, here's the last four of your card, reply yes or no. If you are genuinely curious if that is coming from your financial institution, each one of your financial institutions should actually have a web page, and they have their own attached phone number, like their own 5-digit phone number that they will send those requests from. But if you're ever unsure, just call them and ask them. I know it's kind of a pain in the butt, but you're stuck on hold or whatever. But on the grand scheme of things, I would much rather stay stuck on hold to make sure I'm actually talking to an actual bank representative versus I'm talking to someone that's just trying to steal my money.
Right. I
And
mean,
I
I've
think,
gotten calls that were like, "Are you buying gas right now in Kuwait?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Okay, thank you." And that was it. Like
yep,
there
and
was
that's
no
how it should
questions
be.
asked, just,
Right.
"Are you in Kuwait right now?" And I'm like, "Not a good season to go to Kuwait right now, so I'm not." But
Right.
it was just very random, like, or "Are you in Colorado doing this?" Like, no.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's how it should be. Your financial institution shouldn't ever try to like elicit information, especially about your account. We're never going to ask you for your password. If we do ask for a one-time passcode, it'll actually say it in the message whether you should give that password or not. So I think it just takes like a little bit more like attention to detail. But when it comes to, our elderly, they use scare tactics to scare you into believing that you're going to lose even more money if you don't do what they're telling you to do. One of the recent FBI articles that came out was of this recent trend where they're telling elderly customers that they're actually calling in from their financial institution, but that they're working with like the Federal Trade Commission, or they're working with the FBI. And in order for you to protect your money, they need you to go withdraw your money. And when you withdraw that money, either you put it outside of your door or you ship it to them, and there's so many things that like, maybe to us, like some people, they're like, well, that wouldn't make sense. I wouldn't do that in general. But when you're older and you have that fear, in believing that you're going to lose your money, or you're like, oh yeah, I'm working with law enforcement. Like I'm helping, I'm making a difference. Like you really don't know who's on the other side of the phone that's even just giving them the time of day.
They fluster
Um,
you, so you get
yeah,
panicked.
right,
I bought
right.
some gift cards from I don't know, Ralph's, one of the grocery stores, and I remember the lady asking me like, "Did anybody ask you
Hmm.
to buy these?"
Yep.
And I was like, "No." My 13-year-old daughter, you know, it's what she wanted
But
for her
it's,
birthday. It was
yeah, it's
like,
a, hmm yeah. And I honestly, I love when people do ask those questions. Like I want, those people to know that stuff does happen. Hey, go buy gift cards, read me off the numbers on the back of your card. Like it happens every single day. And we just don't really hear about it. And there are resources, like, especially if anything happened online, like the FBI has their own IC3 website that you can go through, and you can fill out your story, fill out those impacted accounts that you have, and they will look at them, they will review them. But they need also people to actually report it for them to actually make those connections if there is a group of individuals that's perpetrating the fraud. Um,
so what happens if you do get one of those phone calls and they do fluster you and you end up losing your money? What's the first thing you should do?
Call your bank. I say like the first 24 hours of something like that happening, like call your bank, let them know, file a claim and see, the bank has their own protocols for doing things. And the sooner that we get the report, the sooner that we can try to get that money back, to hopefully get it back to you. Because the money movement can happen so quickly, that sometimes there is no recovery. But the sooner that you can report it, the better. I always say too, go to law enforcement. You can file a police report if you were a victim of fraud. You can file a police report, and that just continue escalating it. You will find people that will care for your story. You are not just another statistic to something that happened.
My mom did file a police report. She said they were wonderful at the police station. They said that they
Mhm.
see this a lot. And even her bank has been very like
Mhm.
compassionate and
Mhm.
walked her. She said, I have to come into the bank. I can't do these things over the phone. So she
Mhm.
went into the bank and took all the necessary steps.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And when you go and you kind of have like that face-to-face contact with someone, I feel like it helps a lot, especially with, our elderly population. I just feel like they can explain that a lot better versus a representative on the phone.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if you would even have an idea of this, but do you know what percentage of people actually do get their money back?
I think it depends because there's a lot of times where the recourse might take a while,
Mhm.
especially if you are pursuing something criminally, and law enforcement gets involved. That usually doesn't coincide a lot of times with what we will see on the financial institutions end. And in each, depending on what type of fraud you were impacted by, each one of those has different liabilities and everything like that. So it's kind of hard to, narrow it down. Um, but the sooner that you can report it, the better.
I have just another quick question. What does somebody like me that's in my position that has, parents are getting older and
Mhm.
especially my mom who's now alone since my dad has passed away, like what can we do to help protect our parents from this happening to them?
I think the biggest thing is like education, even though I've heard a lot of people like you where they're like, my parents don't listen to me, or this keeps happening. And, I keep, kind of giving them that same story, but it just keeps happening. And I think that's where, whether joint account ownership, if that is something that they're willing to do, or even like a power of attorney or something like that, something that gives you the ability to not only see what's happening on the account, but the ability to put a stop to it. Because if I wasn't, on someone's account, and they're calling me saying, hey, this is happening, I can't do anything about it because you're not on that account. If you have something like that with your mom, I think it allows that kind of like early intervention. If you saw all those alerts, that
Right.
might draw a
So
red
if,
flag.
yeah, if I switch the phone number to my phone number, so if
Mhm.
the text comes in, it comes to me and not to her, is there, would that be something do you think we should do? Or is that something like could her number stay on it where we're both on it, but she cannot get those alerts?
I there's a lot of things that you can do to block the like you can block to where you're not registered at all for certain things, where like you're not registered for Zelle transfers, or you're not registered for online wires, where it would take that kind of registering period and draw those alerts before you can do that. And then I think putting even just alerts like for online banking, depending on what type of financial institution you have, you can always call them, say, hey, what sort of because each one is different. So you can always call them and say, hey, what are some things that I can put into place? What are some things that you guys offer that I can put into place to protect me? What if I can get a multi-factor authentication every single time I'm logging into my online banking, to where I know exactly who's logging in. I know for me personally, every single time my card is used, I have an alert on my phone. I don't really care if it's for $1 or $100. I want to know, because I'd rather catch it sooner than later using what my financial institution is providing me. And then just checking your accounts as much as maybe you don't want to. Like I just consistently check just to make sure that like nothing weird is going on. Um, but yeah, I think those would be kind of my thing.
Yeah. Is there anything that we haven't said yet that people should be aware of?
I think just like be on alert. Like don't let your guard down just because someone's calling you, telling you that they're calling from your financial institution. Never give away any of your personal information when your financial institution is calling you. Again, they shouldn't be asking you right off the bat to verify some of that information. And then last, just like keep yourself educated. There's so many things that you can read about. There's so many different advisories. And there's so many things that we can kind of continue to teach our elderly population, especially because the internet is so vast and there's so much damage that can be done in such a short period of time. That just that constant like education. If you ever just get in front of someone that is elderly and maybe manages their own finances, just like sharing with them the stories, or hey, have you heard about this? Like even something like that, I feel like can really change the way that they perceive some of that.
Sounds good. I'll link up some of these things that you said to check out some of these websites and some of these articles in the show
Yeah,
notes so people can just start to educate themselves and stay educated.
right. Yeah,
I
everyone always
actually,
says it never happens until it happens.
I
And
know, I know. And we're all just all at risk. We really
yeah,
are, you know. There's so much good with technology and there's so much
yes.
bad with technology.
Yeah, and don't ever click on any links. That's like one of my biggest things. I never click on any links.
No, yes, no links.
Yeah, no
But,
links.
but that's like another thing that people just blindly do.
Mhm.
My mom was on, listen, my mom was on my Netflix accounts. They have since kicked her off Netflix when they did their changeover. But at the time, she called me and said, I got this text message from Netflix saying that we owe money and I'm
Mhm.
really worried about you. And I was like, it's on your account. It's my account. Like, she's like, I know. Are you having trouble? I said, Mom, they're not going to call my mother like, at this stage
Right.
of the game, like, and be like, your daughter's not paying your bill. I said, it's all a scam. Like, you have to just ignore these things. But I think they get so nervous and
And they look good. The messages look good. They even when I look at them and I still get them, I'm like, wow, this just looks good. Like this makes me want to click on it just to see what's in it, but I'm not going to.
right.
Um, they're getting good.
I just got something the other day from Netflix and I was, oh, this doesn't even make sense. So I logged in my Netflix account and sure enough, there was nothing weird
Yeah,
at all on my actual account. So I just deleted it, sent it off.
yeah.
But I do really appreciate you being here. I do appreciate you talking about this. This is such a hard subject, I think, for some people to talk to their parents about, but this is just a great, even if their parents can just listen to this first and then be more open-minded, or, maybe shoot them an article they can read so they can just, that introductory to like, I really am trying to help you and,
Yeah,
and just take it off their plate.
yeah.
Okay, well, this was great. I really appreciate it and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you too.